Hey guys, DemonDriver here. Thank you for joining me today. I've started using a new cutting tool that I discovered a couple weeks ago. My wife has been using it for her quilting and sewing, and I watched her use it, and then a light bulb went off in my head, and I said maybe I can use that to cut styrofoam, Depron, and balsa wood. Maybe it would help prevent jaggies. Now normally when we cut, when I scratch build and I cut balsa, I cut Depron, I use a 4-inch or a 6-inch blade like this, kind of like a box cutter, or I use the classic X-Acto knife, much like this. But I found that these knives have a tendency to create jaggies or tears, especially in balsa and in Depron. You'll get a little bit of a snare, and it'll tear the material you're trying to cut. But I found that this, and no, this is not a pizza cutter, this is a rotary cutter, okay? This is a rotary cutter right here. And this tool prevents jaggies when you are cutting Depron, especially balsa wood. If you want to cut thick balsa wood and you want to just run straight through and cut it without basically tearing it or tearing pieces off of it, you use a rotary cutter. This is a great tool, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use it. Alright, let's get right to it. Let me first demonstrate the classic X-Acto knife. We got about a 6mm, 7mm thick sheet of balsa wood right here. Normally what I would do, you come in, you start, now I'm cutting across the grain, but the lengthwise of this piece, let's say it might be an aileron, it might be part of an elevator. Now normally I got to come in this way, and I got to repeatedly cut in order to make this cut, and it just gets irritating after a while because I have to, and this is very thick, dense balsa wood. This balsa is very dense and very thick, so I have to keep coming in and pressing and pressing and pressing. Now the advantage of a rotary cutter is that basically I can come straight in and use all of my body weight to basically press down and cut straight into that balsa. There we go. Now normally this cut, the lengthwise with the grain of the wood, is usually the easiest with a X-Acto knife. You just cut, and usually it takes 2 or 3, maybe 4 runs to get it, and then you got to do it again. But the disadvantage is you keep cutting, and you can use a kind of a hacksaw if you want, but that just makes more of a mess. Sometimes it just tends to you get these little jaggies and things like that. It takes a lot of effort to cut it. Now if I use the rotary cutter, I can use basically all of my body weight in order to cut the piece of balsa. So I just run straight through. There we go. Look at that. I went right through. Very clean, very fast, and with very little effort. Surprisingly little effort. As opposed to the X-Acto knife. And especially when you're cutting like this across the grain, really you see the difference. And I just run through a couple of times. There we go. And look at that, no jaggies. No tears. What a clean cut. What a very clean cut. Now that's with the rotary cutter. I could probably, if I did that with the X-Acto knife, I would say 1 out of half of them, or 1 out of 3 would have tears and rips in the balsa. So right there, the rotary cutter is showing its advantage. Okay, here's a balsa strip. There's a little balsa strip, a little strip of balsa. Now let's try normally with the X-Acto knife, I got to do a couple of runs. I got to do a couple of passes. I got to keep doing passes. And I'm already tearing the balsa, see? The balsa's getting torn. Irritating. Really irritating. Now, if I use the rotary cutter, and you're a lot less likely to cut yourself with this. Get the rotary cutter. Hang on. Wow, look at that. No effort. I just whoop, right through it. Now, right here I have an old piece of Depron, an old, kind of a beat up old piece of probably 3mm Depron right here. It's been sitting around a while in my storage space. But let me cut it with a normal X-Acto knife. All right, clean cut. But can we do the same thing with the rotary cutter? The big advantage of a rotary cutter, it's so much safer. You are much less likely to cut your hand with a rotary cutter as opposed to a look at that, effortlessly. I just cut straight through that. Look at that. Look at that, man. That's not even, look at that. Boom, straight on through. The only disadvantage of this is you can only cut balsa or foam that is thinner than the blade itself, because what happens is, like right here, this styrofoam is too thick to make the cut, you see? So what would happen is we would actually smash the styrofoam. So if you're cutting balsa or Depron 3mm up to about 5 or 6mm, as you can see, we can make the cut. You can make the cut. And the advantage again is basically it's a little bit safer. You're not going to cut your hands as easily, and you can exert more pressure, and it's a lot easier, and you don't have to go as bonkers. You don't have to make as many cuts with this as this. This will save you a lot of work when you're cutting balsa. So I would think that this is a real advantage when you're cutting balsa sheet that's over 4mm in width. It gives you a much very clean balsa cut without the tears and the jaggies that you get sometimes with an X-Acto knife. So what do you guys think? Are these rotary cutting tools worth it, or are they just for basically just being a fancy pizza cutter? I think these work really well in preventing jaggies and tears when you're cutting balsa or styrofoam, and especially when you're cutting thick balsa. These really come in handy because you just exert all the pressure and force you want of your upper body, where an X-Acto knife is you're either going to break the blade or you're going to basically tear the balsa. Where these, you just basically lean into it, put your whole body weight, and you're going to cut a strip of balsa. You're going to cut your 5-6mm balsa, and you're going to cut right through it. So this is really, I think these are great, and they're a great addition to my cutting tools that I use. So try them out, see if they work for you. But I'm impressed with them, and using these in RC scratch building for me has been a good addition to my tools that I use. Well, this is DemonDriver. Thank you for joining me, and I hope this video helped. Bye.